Hi. Today I'm doing something a little different. I want to try and attempt to explain to you why investment bankers work such long hours. And I'm specifically talking about M&A bankers, so mergers and acquisitions, which I will try and explain as we go along if you don't know what that is. So, bit of structure. What's my inspiration for this video? Because actually I was planning on talking about this book, Eat, Pray, Love, which I just finished, which I was scared to talk about here for fear of judgment. But then I realized, screw that. I'm allowed to read whatever books I like. And this channel's all about making sense of the world. That book sold 10 million copies, so I think it's relevant to talk about. So I'm not doing that video. I'm doing this video. So what inspired me to do this? Then what is my authority on this? Or what's my experience with this? Why would you listen to me explain this? And then finally, a very simple anecdote, because I could spend years talking about this, but I just want to use one simple anecdote to explain why bankers work such long hours in M&A. Okay, so let's get into it. I, as you might be able to tell, am currently in an office in Melbourne. That behind me is the beautiful Yarra River. Melbourne is very known for its lovely green spaces, and you can see all those lovely trees behind me. The city's more kind of that way. Melbourne is a city of 5 million people, but it's not a big finance city. So a lot of the finance in Australia is in Sydney, which means the building I'm in is where pretty much every investment bank, or the top tier investment banks, are based for the most part, as well as the corporate law firms and a few other companies. So I am surrounded by this. Why am I here? Good question. I am taking this YouTube stuff very seriously, and it's a lot of hard work. So to practice discipline, have been coming in every morning with my dad. So backstory, if you haven't seen my other stuff, I live in London, but I'm back visiting home, Melbourne. I'm staying with my parents, and I'm also coming into work with my dad every day. Because, as you'll find out in this video, he works very hard, and so it's actually great motivation for me to come in and sit down and work in an office environment. I don't know, maybe you think I'm really weird. That's probably true, but I just do really enjoy working. So that's why I'm here. And I'm so fortunate to be able to borrow, I guess, to use this office space which just happens to be spare, while I'm back here. So that's my inspiration. No, sorry, that doesn't really explain what my inspiration is. My inspiration is the anecdote I'm about to tell you about my dad, who works in investment banking and has done for his whole career, and he absolutely loves it, but he works very hard, and I'm about to explain that. But next, I want to say my authority on this. So I also used to work in investment banking very briefly. I realized it wasn't actually for me. I can probably go into that in a whole nother story, but that's not what I want to explain here. But so I've actually worked in it in London at a bulge bracket, which maybe I can do another video explaining that kind of stuff, but I can't. I'm not going to explain it here. Basically, it means a big bank, not a boutique M&A advisory. If you don't, that can be in another video. Okay, anyway, but So I have worked in it. I also used to live in New York before London, and so New York is like finance capital, same with London, so I've been surrounded by it. I worked in finance in New York as well, but not in banking specifically. And but this is a weird thing, right? So I just did a Master's of Finance at Cambridge, and people even in finance don't understand why M&A bankers work this hard. I'll never forget this time in when I was working in London, and it was like 2 a.m. or something, and I was going to pick up printing from the other side of the building, and there was some guy who was in the office and thought on the other side of the office and thought he was totally alone. He was a trader or someone in markets or some part of banking that I actually don't understand, because I understand the M&A side. He was so shocked to see me and was like, oh my God, why is there someone here at 2 a.m.? Like, this guy was obviously up to something a bit dodge or who knows. But I was like, are you serious? Do you know what half this not half the building, but the whole, thousands of people who work in the M&A side, do you know what they're doing? Like, go to the other side of the building and it's full at 2 a.m. Well, not full, like a lot of the senior people have left, but a lot of junior people are there. So it's funny that even within an organization, people don't know what the other people are doing. And so I found it at Cambridge, even though we're doing finance, people in other parts of finance, of which it's really broad, they don't know why exactly investment bankers work such long hours. And then also all throughout society, like my doctor, who's a very learned, intelligent man, he couldn't understand it, said something to me like, why can't they just hire more people? And so many people have said that. And that is what this video will explain. Just, it doesn't work like that. But yeah, I genuinely think this is something that probably 99.9% of people don't understand. And that's totally, that makes sense, because it is a very weird thing. And if you don't work in it, or if you're not like one of the clients who M&A bankers serve, or if you're not a corporate lawyer or someone else who's been involved in the deals, there's no reason you would have any idea what it is. I mean, there's no reason anyone knows what anyone else's job is unless it's literally on TV, or if it's a job like a nurse or a doctor or a policeman, because you see that. But otherwise, it's like, what does anyone do? Like, who knows? But you're about to learn. Okay, sorry, I was talking about my authority. The other thing is I've had 2 relationships with investment bankers. So I've also experienced it from me doing it myself, from having a significant other who's doing it and experiencing, them coming home at 4 a.m. or whatever it is, and then through, being surrounded by it right now, and being surrounded by it my whole life, because as I said, it's what my dad does. And in this example, this anecdote I want to use is about my dad, and it's happening today, right now, and yesterday, and it resulted in me having not had a lot of sleep, and that's what I want to get to. But I want to preface it by saying I fully have nothing against the profession. When I mention like that it didn't work out for me or whatever, that's just personal to me. It can be such a fulfilling, wonderful job. It's just demanding hours, which I'll explain. But also I want to say there are horror stories. There are stories of complete inefficiencies which result in really toxic environments and whatever. And I did experience some of that. So I experienced plenty of horror stories. For example, a pitch, which means you're going to a client to try and win a deal. So you're going up against the other banks, like multiple banks will pitch to a client to say, we want you to hire us on this deal. And you generally make a pitch book for that. So it's a pack of materials that the senior people take to the meeting and they give to the client, and they sit down and they go through it. And so the junior people, like me as an analyst, are in charge of making those materials. Now, if you're in a firm that's like, can be very disorganized and inefficient and whatever, they might leave it to the last minute. That's just kind of what happens. That's what always happens. So it's like the meetings on Tuesday at 9 a.m. You are there working the whole weekend before it. You're there on Monday, and then Monday at like 10 p.m. you're like finalizing it, whatever, putting it all together at 10 p.m. MD comes and is like, no, I want to change this or whatever, or it's sent to someone else for comments, and that person's like, actually, can you do this and this? Why are you doing this? And then you have to go to your VP or associate or whatever, director, whoever it is, to be like, okay, this person wants to change this. Are we going to do it? And then maybe you have to talk to that MD, and they maybe have already gone home from the office because by this point it's midnight. And then you decide what changes to make, and then you're left to make them. And so here's a real example. So I was left with all these comments. Got 3 sets of comments come in at 10 p.m. And then it's like by midnight, I'd worked out with my VP what we were going to do. And then I have to make the changes. So that can be physically like changing words on the document, and it's like a PowerPoint presentation, but it's printed in a book. So changing words, changing colors, like they might be like, this arrow is blue, like it looks terrible, like change it. That kind of thing, because you really want it to be perfect. And then the books have to be printed. So it's like, okay, I've made the changes, 3 a.m, I'm done. Talk to my associate, like, yep, cool, we're done. Let's print. The VP's at home, like checks off, like, cool, send to print. In London, we were lucky, we had printing people who were there 24/7 who print for you. In other offices, I know they might have to do the printing themselves, with the printing and binding. So you then have another couple of hours like printing everything and then binding it into like perfect books with the bind things that you have to like learn how to use that machine if you don't have someone who's like saving your life and doing it for you. But even when you do have someone doing it for you, so 3 a.m. in this case, sending it to the printers, it's like, great, how long is it going to be? Because you then have to get the books to the senior guys who are going to the meeting. Like as a junior person, you are not going to the meeting. So then you have to arrange a courier, and so you have to wait up until, say 4 a.m. it's done, get it couriered wherever. But there was this case where it was like 4 a.m, maybe 5 a.m. even, it was done. So it was like, great, let's go home. And then we sent the final copy to the VP, woke up to a call at like 6 a.m. So it was like, I had an hour sleep and was like, actually, I want to change this. Or she freaked out about something that was like, this is missing, and it wasn't actually missing. I can't remember, but it was basically like, go back into the office and get them to reprint this page. And then you have to change like the entire books. And there might be 10 copies of books because that's how many people are in the meeting. And it was like, cool, I just had 1 hour sleep. And then you go back, whatever, you get the books, they go to the meeting, and then it's like, you might, probably everyone's too busy to even tell you what happened in the meeting. Did you win the work? Who knows? Like, probably not. You're up against 10 other banks. Like, maybe you never even had a chance from the start, but you really just wanted to get in with the client to build a relationship. So it's kind of like a lot. So that's like a horror story where it's like a lot of work and you're not paid for that, right? That is a very important point here in banking. It's contingency fees. So you are paid when a deal closes. So 2 companies. Okay, yeah, so let's back up. I'm talking about mergers and acquisitions. So mergers are when 2 companies merge together. Acquisition is when a company buys another company. and these are happening all the time in every different industry, right? So, and again, we can talk about that in another video, maybe, if people are interested in learning more about this. So, what was my point in saying that? Don't know. Oh yeah, so both sides, generally, when it's a big deal, because these can be billion dollar plus deals, they hire banks to do this. And so the banks try and get on as the advisor. Like, they also hire lawyers and consultants and accounting firms and tax advisors, all these other things. But everyone tries to get on, and then if the deal might not happen, like they might not agree to the terms, it might be an auction. So for example, in infrastructure, it's common, like if an airport's being sold, for example, multiple funds will bid for it. So you might be representing one fund, they're your client, and they don't win the bid, like they're outbid by someone else. So you don't get paid anything, and you've just killed yourself. For your whole team has just worked so hard for however many months, and you get zero. So that's the nature of the job. Okay, so back to my anecdote. Wow, this is becoming a long video. I really do know how to talk. So here's my anecdote of why people work such long hours. Because commonly people say, oh, but can't you just hire more people? And this is why you can't hire more people. Even when everything's very efficient, it's an amazing culture. Like here in Melbourne, in a lot of these banks, the culture is really good. Australia, I think, is the one place in the world where all these banks still have, sorry, my phone's ringing, when all these banks still have beer in a fridge. I just find that quite interesting. Other banks around the world got rid of that years ago, or the US has weird rules about alcohol in the office. Anyway, random tangent. But so even when the culture's good, when you absolutely love the job, everything's efficient, whatever, the hours are still long. So this is the example of yesterday. Today is Christmas Eve in Australia. Christmas is a big time here because it's summer. So the summer holidays coincide with Christmas. It's the standard to have 2 weeks off, and companies generally, a lot of companies enforce this. The office will be closed and you are made to take leave, or if you're not taking leave, the office is closed, so you need to work from home or whatever it is. The cafe we go to every morning is closed. They'll be closed to the 10th of January. That's generally the CBD closes down. Everyone heads to the beach or to see family, whatever it is. So this is really winding down. Not a lot of people around today. And so yesterday was my dad's company's Christmas party. So everyone's finally relaxing. It's a very stressful job. It's been a very difficult year, obviously even more stressful than normal with the pandemic. And everyone's finally kind of last working day of the year, let's relax, have the afternoon off, Christmas party, lawn bowls, drinks, switch off. And my dad, unfortunately, could not attend and was actually stuck in the office. And that is because he was working on a deal that was about to go live. And the nature of the job is it is a relationship job. So he is part of I'm trying not to give all the information or talk about stuff that's not necessary. Anyway, basically, he's in the business of advice. It is purely relationship banking. So clients hire him as a trusted advisor. So it's really to hold their hand through a process. So they don't want anyone to do it. They want the person they really trust. So you can't just say, so basically things are blowing up yesterday, which means I don't know what the deal is, because that's the other thing with banking, it's confidential. So even though I'm saying I'm in this office space, it's fully behind Chinese walls to any bank, because everything they do is confidential. It is because they're dealing with public markets, and so you can't have information leak out, because that's where insider trading comes from. If people have that information before the markets do, people can trade on it, and that's illegal. And again, maybe I can explain that more in another video, but all you need to know is that I don't know what the deal is, so I'm not at risk of saying anything here that would get anyone in trouble. But what I can see is things are blowing up, a deal is about to happen, which means someone is trying to buy someone or acquire something or sell a stake in something. And by how sensitive it is, I'm imagining there's a public company involved, which means it's not two private companies who can just quietly do it on their own terms and it doesn't affect markets. It's something that's going to affect markets, and therefore it's going to end up in the paper. Like, there'll be an announcement and you see it in the news, this company bought this, for example. I should have thought of more examples before I did this, but Facebook buying Instagram or something big like that. It's front page news, right? Australia is obviously a much smaller market, but because it's also a very wealthy country, it's like more like we have every industry here, but it's smaller, which means it's kind of everything is more newsworthy, if that makes sense, and it's not like as put into sectors as it is in other markets like the US. Like, you might not know every deal that's happening in oil and gas or tech or whatever, because they're all separate. But here, because there's many fewer companies, but they're still like big deals, you hear about every sector. So basically it is something that might go to press, be announcements, trigger, whatever, movement in the markets and to the share prices of the company. So if they're publicly listed, it means they have shareholders and they are, have a share price that goes up and down based on announcements. An announcement could be, for example, like the CEO stepping down, but it also could be like this company is buying this company, and that is massive news to the market. So that's kind of what you're dealing with, and you're dealing with a client who has hired you to be their advisor, because they know their business, right? Let's say it's in airlines. Like, the CEO of whatever airline knows their business inside out in terms of airlines, but they don't know about finance, for example, or about, takeovers. They don't necessarily know, unless they have done many in the past, they don't necessarily know everything that's involved, because that's not their job. Their job is to run their business. So the bankers know all of that and they're advising them. And they're hired based on trust for their advice and based on the relationship, which has probably been built over many, many years. And so you can't, as a banker, stuff blowing up with them, it really affects their life, right? Like, they're the CEO of this company. Maybe, they're merging with another company. It means they're no longer being its CEO. Maybe they're selling to private equity, which means, maybe they're going to be kicked out or whatever it is. Like, it has massive impact on them and also on their legacy, because they, as a CEO, are remembered in history for what they've done to this company and their successes and failures. And M&A can be, a lot of them fail, like they don't work out. So it's all strategy involved, and that's why management consultants come in. Anyway, so they're super stressed and they are trying to figure stuff out, and you are the person they're calling. So they're just calling you constantly, and you have to be there to pick up the phone. Like, you as a banker in professional services, you are serving that person. You are not the boss. You are really, this is what a senior banker told me when I was in banking, you're no different to a waiter, where it is your job to serve the table. You're in service. So you do, as in hospitality, you do what the customer wants. Same thing here. You have to do what your client wants. And again, you are not being paid for your time like lawyers are and like consultants are. You are only being paid based on the success of the deal. So you really want the deal to be successful. So you are doing everything to help advise the client. And that's where there's conflict of interest, right? Because you actually, the best thing for what the client to do is to not do the deal, but that means you don't get paid. But your point is to give them advice. And so if they really trust you and they know you've helped them, they'll keep hiring you in the future. And when they do the deal, which is the right deal, you'll get paid. And that's where integrity comes into it. Anyway, whole nother topic. Wow, I could really just talk about this forever. But so the point is, yesterday, Christmas party started at 2. Dad's like, stuff's blowing up. Like, I'm not going to get that. The rest, luckily, most people got to go. A few people still wrapping things up, whatever. I was here working on the YouTube video I posted yesterday. So I was kind of going over there, and went over, because I was also going to the Christmas party. So went over, was like, okay, by maybe, 6 p.m. now, like it's 4 hours after the thing started, they're onto drinks. Most people, the last few stragglers, have wrapped things up and have managed to get away for even like a couple of hours. If they have to come back to work, fine, that's the nature of the job, right? Dad is like still with one of his juniors, still working, talking to the client, like stuff, like they're just not. And it's kind of like, okay, yeah, hopefully in half an hour we'll be able to go. I honestly wasn't fussed because I was editing a very long video yesterday, which I didn't realize this video is going to be just as long. But I was kind of like, cool, I'm relaxed, I'm still working. And it's like you just don't know what's ahead of you. You can't anticipate what the client's going to want. And also, sorry, the important thing I missed is it's a negotiation, right? They are dealing with another side. It's not just one side deciding. It's two companies. There are people on this side and people on this side, and they both have their lawyers and bankers and whoever else, and they are trying to come to an agreement on something. So you don't know how the other person's going to react, and it's all strategy and whatever. There has to be some really fascinating books on this. So Barbarians at the Gate is the first one that comes to mind about the first big private equity deal by KKR. So maybe I'll read that book and then I can talk about this stuff more. Private equity is slightly different, but yeah, I can explain it all in that video. But so this is really what it is. It's like a negotiation, but as you might just say, but can't they just say like, it's Christmas, can we just wait to talk about this for 2 weeks? But it's like, no, these are huge companies. Like, again, I don't know what the companies are, but let's just say they're listed companies that have a market cap of, say, $1 billion. That means how many shares outstanding times the share price. That's what a market cap is. So, and that means you might be like, oh, a lot of people say this about whenever they hear the word invest, they think it's like, oh, this is about like investing rich people's money. It's like, no, that's not what this is. This is public companies affect all of us because so in Australia, superannuation, which means pension contributions, are compulsory, which means everyone's salary is going into a fund which is being invested for their retirement, mostly in equities, i.e. shares. Those shares are in companies, big listed companies. So that means what these companies do affects every single person here. And whether you think that's the right way to structure a society or not, that is how our society works at the moment. So it does affect you. So it's not like it doesn't matter. Like, it does matter. These people are dealing with huge companies that have, wow, the video cut out because I actually just talked for 30 minutes straight, which means I'm going to try and wrap this up now. What I was saying was the companies, not only does it affect like the millions, because there might be potentially millions of shares outstanding, so not only does it affect all the shareholders, it also, which again is us guys, whether you're directly invested yourself or just by having a pension fund, which will be invested in equities, you're affected, but also, of course, so are all the employees of these companies, as well as the customers and the suppliers and everyone involved in whatever the business is, right? And this is like our whole society. This is how it works. So it affects a lot of people. It's very stressful. So anyway, he was there working and like didn't, manage to leave at whatever to make it to the last half an hour of the Christmas party while everyone had been there for hours and hours and were going home. And then I woke up this morning because, again, to the start of this video, I'm trying to be like very disciplined with getting onto this, and so to come into the office whenever he comes in, and I woke up at 6:45 ready to get ready, which is like so early for me. I'm much more of a late sleeper. Anyway, to come in, and he was already on the phone. I could hear him, not hear what they were saying. Don't worry, no confidentiality breaches here, but I could tell that he was on the phone to the client already from who knows what time in the morning. This is before 7 a.m. because they need to figure this out. And so that is why they work so hard, right? There is a relationship. There's no inefficiencies here. It is the client needs something, and that is why they've hired you, and you have the relationship with them. You're their trusted advisor. It doesn't matter that it's Christmas. It doesn't matter if it's 4 a.m. It doesn't matter what's going on. It doesn't matter if you're like on holidays. This is what I've seen growing up. It's like the middle of a family holiday. Dad has to leave. It's again with boyfriends in my past, it's like they are, they've got stuff to do. It doesn't matter that you had a date night planned. I can't say it was necessarily date nights because I was also working long hours, but whatever. It doesn't matter that 2 a.m. is a more reasonable time to go to bed till 4 a.m. Like if there's something to do, you have to do it. And yeah, this is why I explained this is, my dad's a senior guy, he's 62. He's not doing all the work I was talking about earlier in the video, like changing the color blue and whatever, changing like one, putting a full stop there or whatever it is. Someone junior is doing that. So when the senior guys are working this hard, you better believe there are junior people below that who are there to actually make the changes, like get the document out, like whatever, type this up, make this, send this email, do whatever. The client wants this, they need to look at this, and this, they need it sent to them. And yeah, it all comes back to you're working for the client. And so if they are hardworking people, which of course they are, they're CEOs of, potentially $1 billion plus companies, multiple billion. We don't have companies as big as they have in the US here, obviously, but the US has companies that are worth over $1 trillion. Can you imagine how hard, like if Elon Musk is doing a deal and you are working for that guy as his banker, how hard you're going to be working? Like it's just the nature of the job. So I hope that has helped to explain why investment bankers, specifically in M&A, work so hard. I really did not, I thought this was going to be like a 5-minute video, but anyway, there's so many other things. I just hear all these questions in my head of people who have asked me this kind of questions before. So I actually think I'd love to do a video talking about what banking actually is and what M&A banking actually is and how it differs from like what you see in Wolf of Wall Street, which I think is also, they call it investment banking. or maybe they don't. I don't know. I feel like investment banking, people just say that. No one really knows what it means. But it would be cool to actually explain it from my understanding, which again, as I said, is very, very different from like what traders do or what people do in markets, which honestly, I don't really know. And I, again, because there's a Chinese wall blocking these two parts, because they deal with markets, which is public information. Bankers, M&A bankers deal with private information. There has to be separation between them. Yeah, it would be cool to find books on this that explain it, and then I can explain it through the book, so then it stays on theme with the channel. But that's it for now, and I will see you back here for Eat, Pray, Love soon. Whoops. Bye.